What if I told you that one of the most important words in the Quran has been hiding in plain sight, misunderstood for centuries? Today, we're doing a deep dive, putting a single, powerful Arabic word under the microscope: deen. Now, you've probably always heard it translated as religion, but what if its real meaning is something that actually challenges the very idea of organized religion as we know?
So on one hand, you've got the standard definition. You see the word deen, you think religion. It brings up images of rituals, specific labels, big institutions, the whole package. But on the other hand, well, there's a big question mark. Because if you let the Qur'an define its own terms, its own internal dictionary, it points to something totally different.
And this is the question that kicks off our entire investigation today. What if the whole point of the Quran was never to establish a religion in the first place? To get to the bottom of this, we can't just trust centuries of translation. Nope. We have to roll up our sleeves and get back to the source code of the language itself. Okay, so think of this as a linguistic detective story. The first thing we need to do is trace this word back to its origin, its three-letter Arabic root. This root is like the word's DNA. By seeing how this DNA shows up in other related words throughout the text, we can piece together its true core meaning. The root we're looking for is dal, ya, nun, D-Y-N. And when you track it across the Quran, a really clear pattern emerges. This root is all about one thing: accountability. Think of it like a transaction, an obligation, or a debt that needs to be paid back. It's all about a relationship where something is owed and must be settled. And our first clue is surprisingly, well, normal. It's not spiritual at all. The most direct use of this root is the word dain. And dain just means a literal financial debt. You borrow money, you have a dain. There's zero ambiguity here. It's about owing something and being held responsible for paying it back. Simple as that.
Now let's build on that. This idea of accountability gets even clearer when we look at a phrase you've almost certainly heard, Yom el-Din. It's almost always translated as Day of Judgment. But if we stick to our root meaning, it's much more precise. It's the day of accountability, the day when all the accounts are balanced and all debts, whether actions or intentions, are finally settled. It's not the day of religion, it's the day of the final audit. So, the linguistic trail is pretty clear, right? The evidence inside the Quran itself consistently points us away from ideas like ritual or religion and squarely toward accountability, a system of cause and effect of debts and payments. Now that we have this foundation, we can go back and look at the word deen with fresh eyes.
So, if deen doesn't mean religion, what does it mean? Well, the Quran itself gives us the answer. It uses deen to mean a system, a complete framework of laws and accountability. You could almost think of it as an operating system for reality. And thankfully, we don't have to guess, because the Quran gives us concrete examples.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The Quran talks about different kinds of deen. It mentions the deen of the king, which clearly means the king's law, his legal system. It talks about the deen of truth, which is the system of reality itself, how the universe actually works. And it talks about the upright deen, meaning the correct, standard system that's aligned with our nature. Notice a theme here? They're all systems of accountability, not sets of religious rituals.
Okay, let's take this new key and try to unlock one of the most famous verses out there. Traditionally, you hear this as, the religion with God is Islam. But what if we plug in our new definitions? If deen is a system, and Islam at its root means peaceful surrender or submission, the meaning completely transforms. It becomes a statement of natural law. The true system of accountability is to surrender to reality. It's not about joining an exclusive club. It's a description of how the universe actually functions.
But wait a minute, this leads to a huge problem, a real plot twist in our investigation. If the guidance is all about one single, unified system of reality for everyone, then why on earth do we have hundreds and hundreds of different religions all claiming to be the right one? Where did all this division come from?
I mean, that's the real question, isn't it? If the message is supposed to be singular and unifying, why is the result so fragmented and chaotic? Well, it turns out the Quran has a very specific answer. And it's not that people got confused, it's that there was a motive.
In fact, the very same verse we just looked at gives us the diagnosis. It says that people didn't divide into sects out of ignorance or confusion. No, it says they divided after clear knowledge had already come to them. It was a willful, deliberate choice. And it was driven by a very specific and very human impulse that the Quran calls baghyan.
So when the world is baghyan, it's not a misunderstanding, it's ego, it's jealousy.
It's that desire for power and status over other people. It's creating an us versus them mentality out of pure rivalry and resentment. The Qur'an is saying people splintered the one system not because it was unclear, but because they wanted to be in charge.
And this is not just a one-off comment. The Qur'an hammers this point home again and again and again. It describes this tragic pattern repeating throughout history. A community gets clear guidance, and then they shatter it into competing groups. And it's always for the same reason: baghyan, this envious transgression among themselves. It's a timeless warning about one of our most destructive tendencies.
So let's put it all together. We've followed the linguistic clues, we've identified the motive for all this division. So what's the final verdict here? What's the big picture that emerges? Well, it's pretty radical. This verse right here basically lays it all out. It says that the exact same deen, the same universal system of accountability, was given to Noah, Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad, an unbroken chain. And the core instruction was identical for every single one of them. Establish this one system, and this is the crucial part, do not be divided in.
And here's the ultimate tragedy that the text describes. Despite that crystal clear command for unity, what happened? The followers of every single one of those messengers did the exact opposite. They took that one beautiful universal system and, driven by that ego, that baghyan, they smashed it into 1,000 competing pieces we now call sects and religion.
So the contrast just couldn't be clearer. On one side, you have the Quran's concept of deen, this one, universal, unifying system based on objective reality. And on the other side, you have what we call organized religion, sectarian by nature, divisive in practice, and usually based on the authority of men and institutions. According to this analysis, these two things are polar opposite.
And the Quran does not pull any punches. I mean, look at this verse. The messenger himself is told point blank to have nothing to do with people who divide the system into sects. It's a direct command to disassociate. That's how seriously the text takes this issue of creating religious factions.
And this, of course, leads us to the most startling conclusion of all. If you follow this line of reasoning, then from the Quran's own perspective, the very institutions of organized Judaism, Christianity, and even Islam are themselves the result of the baghyan, the sectarian division that it so fiercely warns against. They aren't the deen, they are the division of the deen.
So I'll just leave you with this final, challenging thought to chew on. If the source code itself contains such a powerful, repeated warning against creating sects, factions that celebrate their own special labels and claim exclusive truth, then what are we supposed to make of the massive religious structures that have been built in its name? It's a question that really cuts to the heart of what religious identity even means.